Welcome to the Hacking Your Health podcast with Ben Canning and Dave Kennedy. Two guys heading out to hack body, mind, business, and beyond. We are here to provide a single source, bullshit-free guide to understanding your body and how you can live better for longer.
Yo, what's up everybody? Welcome back. I am Ben Canning.
I'm Dave Kennedy.
And we are in Belfast.
We're in
the
Belfast.
Ormo Baths, and this is Hacking Your Health podcast. Our first live audience episode because we have Mark McCracken here who is just out of shot.
Hello.
I don't know if I'll have to add that in. Sorry,
Put the hello in the background. No, special thanks to Mark for actually setting this up. We're in a
we
really
look like
awesome-
we're legit.
Yeah, this is actually a really cool setup. Yeah, except your chair is smaller. So for those that are watching the stream, Ben is around the same height as me, but the chair is actually smaller, so I look bigger. So as soon as I got here, I picked and claimed the biggest chair so I could be taller than Ben. So at least we have that going for us, which is great.
Well, you've got to go for you.
I got to go for me. That's all I care about, so we're good.
But anyway, this is Hacking Your Health podcast. I'm going to ask you what's been going on with your week, but I've been with you all week, so
Been together all week.
Let everybody else know what's been going on this week.
Yeah, so it's been a great trip. We started off our trip meeting each other in Brussels, Belgium, and everything actually worked pretty well. Although I had to, I'll say training helps you in multiple aspects in life, especially as you're going through European customs and security. We had a medical emergency on our flight, and we were an hour delayed taking off. And by the time we got there, as soon as we landed, it started boarding in 15 minutes. And I don't know if anybody's ever been to Heathrow. But it is not a small airport. And if you're in a different terminal, it is a chore to get there. So I was in Terminal 3 and I had to get to Terminal 5. And I had 15 minutes before they started boarding, which, you probably have about 30, 45 minutes or so after that. And I sprinted to get to Terminal 5, but you have to take a shuttle. And there was a line, of course, going through the shuttle. So I had to wait for that line. And then I get into the shuttle. And it's like a 20-minute drive just to get from Terminal 3 to Terminal 5. So I'm sweating this whole time. I'm like, there's no way I'm making this. And the cool part was as soon as I got out of the gate, the airport attendant, the flight attendant was like, hey, if anybody's going to the Brussels flight, you're not going to make it. We've rebooked you for a 5:50 flight, which was like 7 hours later. So I was going to have to spend 7 hours in Heathrow. And I'm like, well, challenge accepted. So I get all the way to Terminal 5. They're already boarding at that point in time. And I get to the customs line, and it was just, there must have been 1,000 people all packed into this tiny spot. I'm like, there's no way. This is going to be at least an hour for me to have to go through this. And I saw a sign that said, fast track UK people only, UK folks only. And I'm like, well, I'm kind of originally from here. Like, even though I was born in the States, I'm like, I'm pretty much European at this point in time for my lineage. So I was like, I'll give it a shot. So I ran through there. I'm like, listen, my flight is boarding right now. And the security guard was super awesome and let me through. And then I had to go through a second security line, which of course doesn't go. And I'm just sitting there sweating bricks. And of course, it's super slow to go through the check marks. And I finally get there and I sprint to the gate. And she's like, you literally made it with a minute to spare because we were closing the gates right now and I made my flight. Now, what that meant though is my bags did not make it. So I didn't get my bags to the next day. And I don't know if anybody's ever lost their bags before, but it's like your only thing that you have that's like close to home. So you're like, man, like my vitamins, my protein, my change of underwear, all of that's out the window now. So I didn't have that till the next day, but it was all good. It ended up working out.
So what you're saying is we need to release a airport running program.
Yes.
For people who need to train whenever they need to run.
I think that'd be awesome. Have you ever seen, there's like a couple of YouTube short videos where it has a guy carrying a luggage bag and he's on a treadmill and he's running with it. So
you'll be in a race there with your backpack and the wee suitcase. Just got to practice just in case for that one moment.
Just in case that moment actually happens. But made it in time and then got to Brussels, got to hang out. And we had a great stint. I got to hang out with a good buddy of mine, Wim, and I got to meet Wim, and we did some awesome touring. Wim was a great tour agent for Belgium, so we got to go to different places, see some really awesome churches and history and things like that, and the massive boat of sushi, and then the like 20-course meal that we ate as well. So I think today's podcast is really going to be about how do you manage a boat of sushi and a 20-course meal and still keep that within the confines of what you should normally do, because it is possible to do, believe it or not. So, and a Belgian waffle.
Yeah, the Belgian waffle was good. I think I want to talk about the things that I learned about you while we were in Belgium. So number one, you like castles and churches. I didn't know that. So I think the more time that we actually spend in person together, the more fucked up the relationship gets in terms of knowledge. But we went to see some cool churches.
You learned I'm scared of clowns.
I learned to scared of clowns. Yeah. You learned that I like to wear female deodorant.
Yep. So Ben wears female deodorant. If anybody wanted to know that, we're at the supermarket, which is not the same as a supermarket in the United States. I just want to throw that out there. And he goes and gets women's deodorant. I'm like, it's like a flower. He's like, I've been doing it for like 10 years. It's what I do. I'm like,
it was pomegranate and it was Belfast. And anybody who's listening who actually does use female deodorant, they will fully understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, Mark
These
is.
wives.
Yeah. See, there you go. And at least I don't wear females underwear. So, I mean, that's definitely a plus.
You wear females underwear too?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
No. But yeah, I think the trip, thanks to Wim, I don't know if Wim is listening, but thanks to Wim, I got to go to my first security conference, which was an experience in itself. And I'll tell you, if there's ever a situation that you want to feel completely out of your comfort zone, if you're not in information security, you should go to an information security conference. I had a fucking clue what anybody was talking about. I got cornered by a guy he showed me a book. I don't know if I told you this full story. He showed me a book and he was like, have you seen this book? And it said model threatening. And I was like, nope.
Threat modeling.
See? So that's on my channel. Yeah. Threat modeling. I was like, have you seen this book? I was like, no. He was like, you know what threat modeling is? I was like, no. And then he was like looking at me, he was like, okay, well, like, what area of InfoSec do you work in? And I was like, well, a lot of my clients are in InfoSec. And he was like, okay, as if like this is positive. And he's like, what do you do for them? I'm like personal trainer. And he was like, why are you here? I was like, I'm with Dave. And he was like, right. So you coach Dave? And I was like, yeah. What do you coach him in? I was like, I mean, it's hard. So I need to navigate what my intro is. Do you know what I mean? Like when people ask me what I do and why I'm in places, I need to have that locked down. But yes, it was definitely an interesting experience.
So we went to BrewCon, which if anybody hasn't had a chance to check it out, is a phenomenal conference in Belgium. It used to be in Ghent, or Gent, I don't know how you pronounce that, but then it moved to another smaller type of town, and it's actually in a brewery, which is really cool, an old brewery. And thought it was a really awesome venue, a lot of amazing talks. I'll tell you, I feel like European talks are just always rich with content and, heavily technical backings and things like that. So some really great researchers, some really great talks they put together. I was very fortunate to be the keynote this year. So talking to everybody, it was about 500 attendees. And it was great to, come in, look at it from a health perspective as well, making sure we still hit the gym. We ended up using our, well, for one, we found an awesome gym that Wim belonged to that was amazing. And then we also lifted in the hotel gym as well, which, you're limited in what you can do there, but we had a great arms workout that day. And, again, trying to find the time and making sure you still fit in this lifestyle along with the business aspects of things, which is I had to prep for a presentation. I had to make sure I got it done and ready, spent some time making sure that the actual presentation itself was on par for what I would do, but also focusing on the health aspects of things as well. So, it's, I think, a nice blend of all of the above. And the first time I've actually done international travel when I've been on this type of lifestyle too. So learned a lot of lessons. We could talk about that, baking calories and what does that mean? And what do we do to really kind of adjust our schedules to be able to accommodate, going out to a really nice meal that had literally like 20 courses to go and eat, or eating a full sushi boat that, was 100% just 300 calories, all protein. So, how do you manage those different types of things that you're faced with when you're in busy travel and being able to manage it in time?
Yeah, I think what we want to talk about is being able to manage that with travel, but not specifically just because we've done a podcast episode obviously about conferences and survival guides and whatever else. But I think for you and I, thinking about it from we still had a business to manage, we still had work to do, we still wanted to enjoy actually being away, being able to do things like within, culturally or, like food wise, we still wanted to train. So there was a lot of things to manage, and we didn't really have a lot of time. So I mean, we were in Belgium, I guess, for like 3 days.
Yeah.
And then we have been in Belfast, I guess, for 2 days. So how do we navigate that, and how do we manage all that, and how do we prioritize different things while still be able to actually enjoy life, eat Belgian waffles, drink Belgian beer, and not have to feel like we're missing out on anything, or not have to feel like we have to restrict ourselves or avoid things because we are health and fitness people.
Yeah, I think that was the cool part is, when you were still on calls, you were still doing check-ins, you were managing your business aspects. I had to go right after my talk, we hung around there for a little bit and hung around the conference, but then we had to bounce back to Brussels, which was like a 45-minute drive, which I think we did like 8 times. And, I had an hour and a half long call I had to take for one of my companies. So, it's still a busy flow of things that you have to deal with. But at the same time, we had planned our day appropriately the day before to make sure, hey, we know we're going out for a big meal, or we know we're going out to the gym at these specific times. Let's plan that, around what we have to do from our busy day to day, and still make sure that we're able to maintain the level of effectiveness that we want to, and not miss out on the gains, or, reverting back to a certain, type of thing. But making sure that, hey, yeah, we're busy. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, but you're still making time for yourself to hit that level.
Yeah, I think, I don't know about you, but the hardest thing that I had to navigate was different time zones. And this probably goes back to being in Nashville too. So being in a different time zone and operating your calendar in a different time zone. And I will be the first to admit, I did fuck one of my calls up because of where we were and the time zone difference, and I had to reschedule it. Thankfully, the person that was on the other end of the call was happy enough to do that. But aside from that, there was no issues. And I think that I've always said that whatever job or whatever that I did for a living, I wanted to have freedom with. And I know that people will think, well, you don't really have the freedom because you always have to work whenever you're traveling. Like, as long as I have my laptop with me, I can work and be wherever I want. And I think that, the past month for me has been a testament to that and being able to do it. So as long as I have my laptop and I sort of prioritize actually time to get working, whether it's first thing in the morning before we get up and I was doing coaching or whatever, or if it's in between times after the conference, and we just say, look, you need to go and do work. You can do it upstairs in the hotel. I'll sit downstairs in the hotel. We do work, and then we're going to go out for dinner after. Like, it's just about knowing that you still have shit to do and not just abandoning everything because you're like, fuck it, I'm in Europe.
Yeah, and I mean, you're a good testament to that because, I mean, you literally have been everywhere the past month, traveling back and forth. And I've been under that pretty heavy travel schedule too. And managing that time and effort is definitely something that is a big part of it. Whether I'm going to New York or next week I'll be in Gurkhan and Wild West Hacking Fest, and I'm already planning my times and lifts. And it's funny because people now are hitting me up. They're like, hey, when time are you going to go lift? I'd like to go lift with you. I'm like, sounds good to me. Let's figure it out. Let's work it out. So, I think it's that prioritization around what you're doing and how you do things that becomes important. And, when we started looking at our days, we knew that, with Wim, for example, we were going to go out to a fairly large dinner that night. So that day we literally didn't eat anything other than a little bit of protein.
I would say I don't want to be an advocate for not eating. I think we both just made the decision that Wim told us about the restaurant. It was like a set menu, and there was genuinely maybe 20 different courses. And I was like, I'm a big fan of trying to work out how many calories things are and how to navigate that, but that is just a shit show that I didn't want to deal with. I was like, I could get away with fasting for the majority of the day and just eat that one meal. So maybe a level of extreme that people don't need to go to, and it could be a case of just pull back the day before or the day of. But I think we both were under the agreement that it was best that we didn't eat.
And that gets into the discussion of banking calories, which is, if you're going to have a family meal, and especially very relevant with all of the different holidays that are coming up around Thanksgiving and Christmas and all of those different things, if you're going to have a big family meal and you know that you're going to be above your caloric intake for that day, shave calories off the day before or the week before, slowly at a time. So let's say you bank, 200 calories a day for 5 days. Now you got an extra, X amount of calories that you're able to work with. So you have an extra 1,000 calories that you have to work with. Very something that we did. I know my limit is around 2,500 calories a day right now. So, when I looked at the meal that we're having, it's probably going to be around 2,000 to 2,500 calories, or more, for that matter. And so I wanted to, eat less the day before, and then, not really eat much that day. And then from there, started eating the calories that I needed to. So you can definitely play with it. I mean, you don't have to fast the whole day and not eat anything at all. But I'll tell you, it wasn't hard at all to do. It was, we were so busy with everything going on that food was kind of just a side topic. We had some coffee, I think. And then I think before we worked out, we had like a protein bar. It was after we worked out, we had a protein bar, and that was literally all the calories we had for that day. And then we went into that big meal, which, I felt like, was almost like a feast, right? It was like, we had not eaten all day. Our bodies were hungry. We had worked all day long. And this was kind of like the celebration of that. And, it kind of goes back to our tribal times of a big feast you hear in like the movies and things, but it actually is relevant to modern history where, people will be out fighting all day in wars or things like that, and they come home to a massive feast. That was a very common thing, common practice. And so kind of getting back to our old school roots and going to that and being able to eat a really good dinner, which was an amazing,
it was an experience more than anything else. And I see one thing that I sort of thought, like, when we were on the way to the restaurant, again, another 45-minute journey, I was actually hungry. And it's not very often that I feel hunger. And I realize that's maybe a ridiculous thing to say, but because, the nature of the way that we sort of structure food and that we eat, like, I eat quite regularly, so I never have really that feeling of hunger. So I was actually hungry and I was actually looking forward to each meal. Now, the things that they were bringing out for anybody who's looking for a bit precise, like maybe an inch in diameter, but so much flavor, like almost like art that you're eating.
Yeah.
Like, I sort of felt bad as like looking at the thing and like it's definitely taken, 3 people at least 30 minutes to make this one thing. And I'm just going to have it in one bite here without any sort of regard for them at all. But yeah, actually going into that anything longer, it was, like I said, it was an incredible experience. And I'm glad that we did bite the calories because I don't know if I would have felt any differently if I had eaten through it today.
Well, it's funny. It's very similar to when we ate at Hugo, not Hugo.
Hugo.
I got corrected that it's not Hugo, it's Hugo. But that day again, we didn't eat much throughout the whole day, knowing that we were going to have a big meal and eating out. And that's kind of what you have to think about when you manage it. For me, if I'm traveling by myself and I'm not going out with friends and things like that, or not taking me to a menu, like I like going to like a place that just is going to have a nice big steak, maybe some sweet potatoes, and then some veggies, and that's a good solid meal. That's going to be, from a macro breakdown perspective, very efficient. But when you're going to more like a tapas type of place where they have various little plates and things like that, the macros become much more difficult to track because it's not simplified food. It's it's going to have a lot of ingredients. It's going to have a lot of different things going on, probably a lot of butter, and so you have to plan that accordingly and kind of just guess is the best way of doing it around how many calories you think you're going to be putting in at that time. And it's obviously not anywhere near an exact science.
How did you track the meal that we had in Duffel?
300 calories all protein.
Well, I just put in quick add and I just put in 2,500 calories.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that's what it was or what, but it just gave me something to put in.
Yeah, and I still logged it just to keep it with that mentality, but I just put it in as Cocoa Pebbles protein because I think the macro counts aren't going to be anywhere near what it needs to be. But at the same time, I'm still logging, still keeping up with that habit. Now, when I ate at other places that I could calculate the food, I would enter that in 100%. Like I had an Anabar, so I'd obviously calculate that, or I'd go and have a certain type of sandwich that would have the breakdowns in the back. All of those things I think are still important for you to track as you're going along, but knowing that, hey, there are going to be some meals I'm just not going to be able to do if I'm going out, even if it's not travel, I'm just going out, with your partner or things like that, allows you to, have that freedom and flexibility based on knowing that you're going to have a big meal at night, eat a lot less during the day before. Your body doesn't know the difference between, when you're eating it 8 hours later or 6 hours later. It's calories in versus calories out. So at the end of the day, the more calories you bank, the more you have to be able to play with and flex with.
Yeah, I think there's 2 points I want to touch on that. Because I had a call with Lou, actually, when we were still in the gym. And I was talking to him about banking calories, and I was talking to him about tracking food whenever you're out and about, and I could tell his frustration because he wasn't able to get it perfect. And I think that's obviously, because we look at a lot of data and try and manage a lot of data and information, that's probably a big struggle for people within the industry because they tend to want everything to be perfect and have the data exact or what the fuck's point in having it. And I think that's something you definitely need to detach yourself from with using MyFitnessPal, because whether I track something and I actually scan the barcode, whether it's exactly like that or not is irrelevant. It's just having that as a gauge of it's the same thing each time you track it or whatever else. So for me, with the banking calories thing, there's 2 ways that I would look at it. Number one, bank your calories. So either do it, as you mentioned, take 200 calories off each day and know that you have 1,000 calories extra. The way that I would sort of generally program it or generally suggest to do it is up to 20% of your calories up to 3 days before, which can give you quite a lot of calories. Because if you do that, that's 500 calories a day. So an extra 1,500 on top of your 2,500 is going to give you 4,000 calories. That's a lot to play with in terms of the day. So there's a lot in that. And then you can either eat less throughout the day as well. Try and focus on your protein. Make sure you tick that box, and then get to the meal. And if it is something like you had a steak last night, you would be able to track that because it would have told you the weight of the steak on the menu, and you could track it, add the butter in, and everything else that you have inside. Or you could just know that you have 2,500 or 3,000 calories banked, and be okay with not tracking that meal and actually just go and enjoy it. Because I think that sometimes we can get caught up in just the data and wanting the numbers that we sort of forget to be present within the meal or whatever else. So sort of decide what you want to do. And that's why I just did this sort of open calorie thing for that. Well, number one, there was absolutely no way I could even begin to, I don't even know what the food was I was eating. But yeah, so you can be present and not get too caught up in the data, because I think that that's often something that people miss is I need to have these numbers, when in actual fact, if it's one meal out of the 20 odd meals that you have in a week, it's maybe not a big deal.
Yeah, and there's also some things to take in consideration too. If you're going to be doing it more on a fasted state where you're not eating anything in the morning or afternoon, I'd heavily recommend supplementing with essential amino acids or branched chain amino acids. We'll get into the discussions of why that's important, especially in the morning. But the latest episode of Dr. Atia's The Drive talks about muscle deterioration or muscle catabolism, where your body's basically breaking down muscle until you have certain amounts of protein sources, and your branched chain amino acids are going to be the amino acids that basically get extracted from the meat or things that you're eating from a protein perspective that allow you to build muscle and to stop that muscle catabolism type of effect. So we'll get into more discussion later on the podcast on that. But one thing is, if you're in a fasted state, this is somewhat up for debate on whether or not amino acid drinks break a fast. Like the fasting purists will say, yes, it does. But for the intents and purposes of what you're trying to get out of fasting, it doesn't typically. A lot of the science is still coming out around, does like sucralose and aspartame and things like that actually spike glucose? And in some people it does, some people it doesn't. But at the end of the day, it's a very quick spike up, and then it shoots back down because your body realizes that it's not actually, glycogen that needs to be popped into your body, or sugar that is being actually used for your body. And so, typically you're going to be fine drinking an amino acid while in a fasted state. And that's actually really important to maintaining your goals for muscle mass growth and making sure that you maximize the mTOR process, which is protein synthesis and muscle growth. So all those things, I think, when you're in a fasted state, still try to consume amino acids, or if you're eating very little amounts, focus on protein centric type of things, so you can continue to grow from a muscle mass perspective, and then from there eat your big meals.
Yeah, I guess talking about amino acids, we got the trim with Helmy yesterday.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, that was an experience, man. I mean, Helmy is a big boy. I mean, he really is legit a big boy.
Time and time again, but he is definitely. I know that you were looking forward to it. So
I was.
Was it everything that you imagined it to be?
It was more than that, because for one, I got picked up with Ben and Helmy, and so Helmy picked us up in his car, and so I got to hang out a little bit there, and then we went to a supplement store, and I bought a bunch of pre-workout, which I already have a million things of pre-workout, but of course, what's 5 more? What's 5 more amino acids? What's 5 more? Whatever. I gotta figure out where to put that, but without Aaron.
How do you get it home?
How do I get it home, and how do I hide it from Aaron so that I don't get in trouble?
Be like, I brought you this pre-workout. It's from Northern Ireland.
I actually told the kids, I'm like, hey kids, I got you guys a surprise. I'm just going to show them the amino acids. But it was really cool to go to the store, and where you guys typically go get your supplements from. Really neat place. It was like in the middle of like a warehouse tucked away way in the back. So it was kind of neat where that was at and everything. And then to actually go to Helmy's gym, which he's got his own private gym, which is like a dungeon. It's really cool. And it's like an old school bodybuilder's gym, like he's got all of like the rusted out iron and also new stuff too. But like, it just reminded me of like, if I could picture Helmy's gym, yes, this is exactly what I would picture Helmy's gym to look like. And Helmy is a monster when it comes to one, I was telling Ben this earlier, you see a lot of bodybuilders that look amazing, but from a strength perspective, don't have a lot of strength. Just because you have big muscles doesn't actually equate to strength. There are 2 different types of muscle fibers, and a lot of times bodybuilders will focus on not the fast twitch fibers, but the short twitch fibers. And those are the ones that grow in mass and size, whereas fast twitch fibers are going to be more of your explosive strength, those types of things. And Helmy, I can honestly say, is a combination of both. He is extremely strong, and he's extremely large. So it's rare to see a combination of both of those. And I mean, when I say he's extremely strong, I mean, the guy was doing 670-pound deadlifts for like 8 reps. I was just like, what in the hell is going on here? And it's such a violent move, like when he's doing it. It's like I was transported back to like caveman days, and where you're mauling a bear for meat, and Helmy's there just like destroying these weights. It was awesome to see, and he's awesome. He's a great guy, real kind-hearted, down to earth. I was really impressed with him, and great workout too. We were trying to cross the street earlier today, and we had a rush to run to get there, and I'm like, there is no chance that my body's going to run right now. It's like my body actually told my mind, "You're not running." It wasn't the opposite of me trying to do it and my failing. My body actually said, "Nope, not happening. Don't even think about it." It preempted that I was going to do it. So I'm definitely sore, but it was a great time.
Yeah, I think what's funny about training with different people, and I can relate this back to when we were in Nashville, because obviously with everything there is levels to the game. So while you and I were training, and some of the guys were watching us and be like, "Fuck, really strong," and blah blah blah, which is so cool, obviously, because it's great for people to sort of
absolutely
aspire to be as strong as you are and everything else. I just think about fucking Helmy whenever I'm training him, and I'm like, there is so much more to this.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much more to progress into it. And I also think, knowing Helmy and knowing, like, I've obviously trained with him countless amounts of times. Deadlift is probably the best session you could have done with him, because you've heard us talk about before training intensity, and I don't think it's necessarily something that you can teach without witnessing it. And if there's somebody who goes to a place, and
he was in a place,
he was in a place, he has the ability, because even like if we sort of like set the scene with it, generally Helmy will train with like metal music on, or somebody screaming or something certain, but we weren't. It was like,
it's like Cyndi Lauper, and Elvis, and Cher.
So it was like he has the.
Dude, when I heard he's sitting there rocking out 670 to "Do You Believe in Life After Love?" I'm like, what the hell is going on here? This is not what I was expecting.
So again, I'd like to caveat this by saying, like, there are levels to everything, and the mindset piece is a big part. But Helmy has sort of developed the mindset to be able to go to that place at a switch. And what he actually said was, it's not necessarily about the music, but the emotion that it brings within him. So that's what he uses in his sets. Now, I'm not saying everybody has to bring emotion and then every intensity to your workouts, but I definitely think that the one thing that we could take away from that session is there are a lot more tools in the toolbox that are internal. So like your software that you can use to increase the intensity of your workouts. And there, in my eyes, in the people that I train with, there are not many people that are at that level that can bring that level of intensity within the workouts, and then just have a normal conversation. It's not like that guy Michael Hearn that you talk about is like, we're going to war and it's death this, and it's like 2 hours of just him pissed off at everything. Like, Helmy's able to have a normal conversation after he finishes set.
It was a strange thing.
Flipping the switch.
I mean, you can even tell, like, as soon as he hit that bar, it was no bullshit. He's in a different mind zone, and he is, a monster. Like everything that he is at that point in time lifting all of that weight for as much as he possibly can do, and taxing his body as hard as he possibly can for that brief amount of time until he can no longer do it anymore. I mean, and seeing a guy as strong as Helmy, go to his knees and drop, because he couldn't do anything more. But then he's like the nicest guy ever right after that. He's like, thanks, Dave. I appreciate you complimenting me. It was
fist pumps and everybody's I'm done after watching that set.
I'm like, I don't want to go after that. I'm like, I don't know what's going on right now. So, but it's funny is because we had 2 bars, one for Helmy and then one for us.
Yeah, but I think that Helmy and I obviously worked with and have known for a long time, and I think that often whenever you see quote unquote meatheads or bodybuilders or big guys, like, there is a sort of natural prejudice against them, but Helmy is the opposite of that. Like, he is, even in terms of like he doesn't necessarily preach or promote bodybuilding with his clients. Like, he's very much about mindset, and he's very much about personal development, and he's very much about, I guess, similar things that we've spoken about how you can use the control of your training and nutrition to sort of filter into every other aspect of your life to just become a better person or become better in whatever field it is that you're in. So it's great to be able to have conversations like that with him instead of just talking about EAAs and fucking testosterone.
What I liked about him was, I mean, very approachable. You know, as soon as you met him, his eyes lit up. He was like, Dave, good to see you. You know, and he was very excited. And you could just ask him anything. Like, you know, and I know I asked him, like, 'cause he did a weird split, which was he does deadlifts and back, you know, one day. And I was just like, so what's the split? He's like, oh, it's just one that I really like a lot that, you know, I'm already doing deadlifts, starting in my back. So I just do, you know, back as part of it. And that's kind of how he splits it up. And I also was really surprised that he only lifts 4 times a week. And I mean, Helmy, you look at him, he is a big dude. I mean, obviously,
I
can't emphasize enough how big of a dude Helmy is. Like, you know, and you don't appreciate it until he took his shirt off and you can see the cutoff. And I'm like, I look at Ben, I'm like, his tricep is bigger than my entire arm. You know, like, just the tricep alone is bigger than my entire arm. So, you know, it was really cool experience, but he was real humble, down to earth, explained everything. And even critiquing me, very complimentary. He's like, hey, try to go back a little bit more, you know, as you're doing, you know, the rows to get a little bit more on your lower lats as you're going through this. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks. And so, you know, just real down to earth guy, had a great training session. And then we did that yesterday with Helmy, and I was tired afterwards. So we went back before we went out to dinner. So I got to meet most of Ben's, well, let me rephrase that, a portion of Ben's family. And we went out to dinner, but prior to that, so I had about an hour and a half or so beforehand. And literally I got home, I showered, and then I laid on the bed and went to sleep. So I took a nap. I was out, and then Ben texted me. He's like, hey, we're going to be leaving in about a half hour. I'm like, okay, that's 15 more minutes. I can lay down and take a nap for a little bit. So I got a good nap in, and then we went out. But this morning, hit the ground right again for a solid push day. Got to train at Ben's gym, which was really good. And some really cool equipment that I hadn't had the pleasure of actually using before. Just modifications to things like the incline chest press, which you could have different distributions of weight. So they kind of have like a 1, 2, and 3 spot. So if you want to hit different parts of your chest, you load the weights in different areas, which distributes the weight differently based off of the exercise. So I thought that was really cool. Cool little customization around how you can really get a good contraction in the chest in certain areas of the muscle. And then that pulley machine that had a supported chest and back portion. So like a little arm came out and it would sit on your chest, and you could do, you know, if you reverse, you do it flies, your back is basically up and you're getting a really good contraction with your chest as well. So really cool equipment that I had never used before. And honestly, you know, if it was my first time going to a place like that, I would not use those machines at all because I wouldn't want to look like an idiot actually like exploring and trying new things. I'd be like, all right, I'm going to use the bench with some dumbbells, and then I'm going to use the ropes, and then I'm good. So, you know, but it was cool to have you there and be able to learn a lot more about different movements and exercises.
Yeah, I think, again, depending on sort of where you're at or what your actual interest level is in training, because I realize some people just don't give a shit and they just want to go and get their workout done. But I think for me, training with other people is an important part of it because, number one, you will learn from watching people. So that's one thing that we sort of picked up on whenever we were in Nashville, because I put everybody in groups. So they were able to see how other people moved, and then other people were able to see how they moved, and they could have a conversation about it instead of everybody just always training by themselves. Number two, like you said, training with Helmy, and he was able to sort of give you tips on different things. And obviously it's, you know, you're using different equipment that he's obviously used to because it's his gym. So him being able to tell you how to get a better contraction on things.
That was a weird machine, by the way. The whole thing would like move. So when you come back,
we didn't warn you about that at all. I was like, hey, you just sit in that pull and you like pull up, but you also like come up.
the whole thing like rows forward as you're doing it so that you get a better longer distance with the row back there. And the whole thing was forward. I was like, whoa, it was like I'm riding a horse. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, so being able to do that, being able to sort of train other people, and just sort of, I guess it's just like refining the craft of actually training and learning the skill of training. And then obviously being able to train in the dock this morning, like, you know, it is the most condensedly packed gym of equipment that I have ever seen in my entire life.
There is equipment, but I will say, as packed as it was with all the equipment, it wasn't uncomfortable to where you couldn't do the exercise or move, right? So yes, there was an ass ton of equipment in there, but really good equipment, by the way, solid. But it was still, I mean, there was a ton of people in there, and we really didn't have any issues with getting equipment or being good at our spots or those types of things. I mean, there's some stuff that was full, like the chest machine was full. But I mean, again, we were able to get to it, eventually, and I didn't have any issues there.
Yeah, I think that, being able to use different equipment and just feel muscles in different ways. So like you said about the prime chest press machine, like the way that it sort of tries to allow the weight of the machine to move in line with the strength of your muscle, like you get a much better contraction the whole way through it. And just being able to try stuff like that, I think is cool. And Rob, the guy who owns, is the nicest guy. Again, ex-bodybuilder, super nice guy, but he's very passionate about having the best equipment and everybody in the gym having the best experience. And like, genuinely, I've never been a part of a gym or a member of a gym that has invested so much into getting new equipment on a regular basis. Like every 3 or 4 weeks, there's a new piece of equipment in there, and I'm talking about it. I'm like looking around and like, where the fuck are you going to put this? This is absolutely packed. But he always manages to do it. So it's cool for me to be able to train in a space like that, where the owner actually gives so much of a shit about new equipment and everybody having a good experience. And I think this often comes down, and obviously not for me because I train there all the time, but whenever I travel or whenever I go to different cities or whenever I'm on vacation or holiday or whatever we want to say, I always want to train. Number one, because it's part of my lifestyle, and number two, because I like experiencing different gyms and I like seeing different gyms. So, you and I have trained quite a number of gyms now, I guess. But being able to see what they have, being able to see how other people train, just getting the experience of being in different spaces, like it's one of my favorite things about what training offers, and the relationships you're able to build with people like you and I, being Amy, whatever, just from one common interest of wanting to train and whatever else. Like it's a massive part of what training gives you that necessarily you don't think you're getting into whenever you just want to lose weight or build muscle or whatever it is.
Well, I think that's the cool part about like where I'm at from a training perspective is I feel very comfortable going to gyms now, which I didn't before. If you listen to the previous podcast, I had a fear of going to gyms that I'd never been to before. I didn't know the equipment, that type of stuff. And I feel very comfortable doing that now. And even when I was in like Austin, the first thing I did, Googled where to go, what can I look for, those types of things, and just various different gyms and different locations. And what I'm finding now is I try to find like a cool looking gym that's near me that I can go experience the culture there, the equipment, what's going to have, the appropriate amount of things that I can use to go and actually leverage that type of stuff. I got to go to the On It gym in Austin, Texas, which was really cool. To see like everybody there, and there was like some famous people from On It there and stuff like that. It was kind of neat to see them recording and everything. But I just kind of need to be able to experience different gyms and see what equipment they have and try different things. I'll typically try to stay within my own comfort zone when it comes to like my workout routines. But if I see a piece of equipment that like I don't know what it does, or it might hit a muscle group a different way, I'll give it a shot. Just to try it out and see how it feels and maybe learn something new. But I think that's like the cool part about travel is I'm getting to experience different gyms now that I've never seen before, that I've never been to. And that's really neat. That's fun and exciting. It's something new. I get to learn every single time. And I get to go to a place that, there's other people there that have probably been there for a lot longer than I have, obviously. But everybody offers day passes. Everybody's super cool when you walk in. They're very appreciative that you're there checking out their gyms. Again, it's one of those things that I think works out really well. And it's the same thing, like you find ones that you want to go to. Again, like I would love to go back again to the On It Total Fitness I'm in Austin. Like great gym there. It was a really cool experience. Same thing for the Smash Fitness in Vegas. So you kind of find like little homes in different gyms that you like, and different cultures that you like, and different experiences. Like the place in Smash Fitness has a smoothie place there. Fresh smoothies and protein right there that you can get made, and it has like a lot of great racks. Whereas you go to like Old School Iron, it's like a huge, massive bodybuilding facility with like 1,000 different machines that are all around there. Very different experience. So I'm finding that as I travel, trying to go to different locations and find different gyms is kind of a fun thing that I'll even research like days before that I even leave. So I have a good plan of action of when I actually leave and I get there on site. Like if I get there late, maybe I'll hit the local gym up in the hotel. So I'll make sure that the hotel I'm staying in has at least a decent gym. And then if I'm there for the day, get my work done as much as I can. And after that, go hit a real gym that's going to have all the equipment that I want to. A real gym or something.
I would say I'm not a fan of hotel gyms or fitness centers or whatever, but obviously with the past sort of month when I've been traveling, I have trained in quite a few, and you can still get a good workout in an actual fitness center at a hotel. And before I would have just used it as an excuse, being like, no, it doesn't have anything heavy enough, some other fucking bullshit. But you can just go in and make it work. You know, if they've got a table machine or they've got some level of dumbbells, you can do it. So if you need to, you can still get it done. But I definitely do like research in gyms, and it's cool because obviously as the more places that we go to and the more sort of the community expands, like we have a point of reference for people as that, okay, right, you live in Texas, where do you train or where do you recommend training? I think just what you said, it's cool that now if you're speaking in specific places, people are reaching out to you, go and train, which again is sort of, I guess, reinforcing what we're trying to do in terms of make an industry better. So if they're like, okay, you're coming over, I know you're going to be training, can we grab a session or whatever else? So it sort of like reinforces that and pushes us further to what we're trying to achieve.
Well, and I think, you start going to these gyms, you start getting more comfortable, like what type of gyms you like and which ones you don't. So you kind of spot those out as you're going through. And it's also neat, like, as you mentioned, like I'm going to Wild West Hacky Fest, and I had a bunch of people reach out to me like, hey, what days are you going to be there? I'd love to go lift with you. I love that type of stuff, right? I got to work out with Chris Russell, who's awesome to watch. He's from Texas, and great to get a good lift in with him. I've been wanting to lift with him for a long period of time. So I was going to go work out with Andrew Hay. Unfortunately, he had a previous commitment, but those types of things are awesome to be able to lift with people you respect, peers in your industry, people that you work with day in, day out, that you're seeing their journeys and things like that. So I love lifting with other people. And then, sometimes you get like the comment of, hey, do you mind lifting? But I'm nowhere near as strong as you. It has nothing to do with that at all. So, do not feel like if you're lifting with somebody, you have to be stronger than them or on the same level or anywhere near that. It's not a competition with other people. It's where you're at in your own journey and what you do to improve yourself. I would never compare myself to anybody else. Obviously comparing myself to Helmy is very different, but at the same time, I respect where Helmy's at and how much work and effort it's taken to get to a position like that, develop a mindset like he has, and being able to really change. I mean, he's very disciplined. I mean, when I went there, he had all of his meals already prepared, all of his food ready to go. The guy is literally on it all day long, every single day, right? And that takes a lot of commitment. But when I see other people that are lifting less than me, what I think about that? I'm like, damn, that's awesome. I'm so glad that they're out there lifting. They're lifting that much amount of weight, and they're challenging themselves to get better. I'm impressed. That's awesome. So never compare yourself to anybody else in any way, shape, or form. It's all about what you're doing, how you're progressing, and making sure that you're seeing yourself progress in a way that allows you to get stronger, to be happier, to live a better life. That's what this is all about. So don't ever feel like if you ever ask me to lift that you have to deadlift X amount of pounds or do a bench press for whatever. And it's funny because like people ask me like, what's your bench press at? I'm like, I have no idea. I don't bench press, so for me, it's not a numbers game. It's about, hey, am I getting stronger? Am I getting better? Am I pushing myself to new limits? I'm definitely going to have to work on the Helmy. We should call it the Helmy mindset. That's a good one.
But the thing about it is, like, and you got the witness, it's like he almost has like a ritual, I guess, coming into training. Like, we got into the gym, he set everything up, he had his pre-workout, he made his intra-workout. Like, he goes through like a process.
He does, and he sits down and chills beforehand, and you
there's
just
no
talks
rushing
calm, no rushing
like,
to it. He's like, when I feel like I'm ready to go, we're going to go. And then as soon as it's in, it's on.
But even if you we'll have footage of it because obviously Ram was there, which was again great to have. But awesome. Even whenever he steps to the bar, there's a process and a ritual to that to allow him to get into that space. But I think even if you're talking about comparison with people, like, be okay with not being as strong as other people, because I've been in that position before where it is just a pissing contest. I'm not talking about you and I, just other people. I'm okay with being in a pissing contest, but
it's a very friendly pissing contest.
But I think the thing, you don't want to go in and go past what you're capable of and end up fucking yourself up. And even yesterday, like, I knew I wasn't at the same level, obviously, as Helmy and obviously as you in terms of deadlift. And I was okay with that. Like, I was working within what I could do and what I knew I could do. And being okay with that, I think, is important. And not trying to sort of reach levels because of the people you're with and sort of like, this is where I'm at. But being able to recognize sort of A, where you're at your journey, and B, how far you've come in whatever it is. So I
was actually really proud of you on that one too, because I know you've had some injuries with deadlifts in the past, and it's not a thing that you work on, as much as you do everything else, right? I mean, you do other things, obviously RDLs and things like that, but deadlifting for you has been something that you've been very sensitive about because of, it's obviously shut you out from training for a long period of time. You hit your lower back, I mean, you're fucked for a long period of time. So, I'm glad it wasn't a competition between anybody. It was what we felt we could do. based off of that. I actually wish I would have went a little bit lighter because I was only able to get like 4 or 5 reps from the 500. But, at the end of the day, I'm still proud of where I was at. But, it just puts in perspective when Helmy's doing 670 for 6. You're like, I just did 500 for 5. You're like, it's not anywhere close, but it's amazing to watch somebody like that. It's amazing to watch you and you pushing yourself. I mean, it's just all around happiness of where everybody's at and what we're doing. And again, that's what it's all about. I mean, yes, we'll joke around on a competition front. I mean, there's no question, Ben from a back perspective is way stronger than me. From a chest perspective is way stronger than me. I'm going to be a bit stronger now because of deadlifts, but that's why I focus a lot of my time on deadlifts. Like for me, that's where I found my home on, and that's what I focus my most efforts on. If I probably had done chest, I could have done the same thing, but it's not like I don't do chest, but my main focus is trying to do as much as there. But it's just cool to see everybody's progress and how far everybody's come along, and want to continue to inspire to be better, right? It's like next year when I train with Helmy, I'm going to be nowhere near him again, but maybe I'll be where Helmy was at a year before, kind of, maybe a little bit less than that, but
Yeah. But I think that is it's being able to admire people and what they do and where they're at, and sort of aspire to get close to that or in that range. And I think that's ultimately sort of another avenue to training give you that you maybe don't necessarily think about when you first set for the gym.
What was cool too is like I could tell, and it was the same for me. Like as soon as we get to like a number like 10, we're like, okay, we're just got to get to 10 and we're done. And Helmy's like, F that. He's like, you got three more. You got 3 more in you. And I could see, I knew it was in me too, because I did the exact same thing. I'm like, shit, I got 3 more to do after that. I was like, I was just going to 10, but we did it, right? And it just goes to show you we can do so much more than what we think we can actually go and do. And I was actually listening to, so I just actually joined Instagram for the first time. Ben talked me into it. And so now I'm on Instagram, but I was combing Ben's stuff. I was combing Helmy's stuff, and Helmy actually had a video up that I thought was really interesting. And it's a big debate on whether or not you go to failure or not, right? Whether you go to muscle fatigue to where you can't do anything anymore. And what Helmy was explaining was not everybody needs to go to muscle failure, but eventually, what you're trying to do is fatigue the muscle to where it is required to build stronger, tear it down and build stronger based off of the type of load that you're doing. And he said, when you're initially starting training, you might be able to not go to failure and bank, an extra 3 or 4 RPE. Things that might be available reserves, and still get that muscle growth. But, if you ultimately want to build as much muscle as you possibly can, why leave all that on the table, go to muscle failure and really start to try to build those muscles and break those muscles down to become stronger. And that's one of the philosophies. If you listen to like Jay Cutler never does muscle failure. He does it very, very seldomly. He focuses on rep ranges. So he's like, anywhere between 8 to 12 was good with me. So he just does 8 to 12 rep ranges, 8 to 12 rep ranges, 8 to 12 rep ranges. And that's all he does all day long. And obviously he's very big. But I think if you want to be a combination of strong and, big, like more in that power building, not powerlifting, not bodybuilding, but that power building, I think, the effort that Helmy puts in from a, max lift perspective and how heavy he was going with it, especially in that 6 to 8 rep range. And then also going to muscle fatigue to where you can't do it anymore I think it's really important to maximize your growth gains from a muscle perspective, which I thought was really interesting to kind of hear his side of the house. And obviously whatever he's doing is working really well.
Yes, it works for him. But I think the thing is, again, recognizing where you're at in your journey. First of all, you need to learn the skill of lifting and moving the weight, actually being able to contract the muscle to take it to failure. So it's not necessarily about going in and picking up a set of dumbbells and moving them in whatever way you can until you can't do it anymore. You need to do it in a way that you're actually getting the contraction through the muscle. So, again, from conversations that I've had from Helmy, if he has someone who's a beginner, he will do a lot more sets and a lot more reps at the start. So we have more reps in the bank of, okay, right now I actually know what this feels. And to take a set to actual failure is a skill in itself. So it's number one, the mindset thing. Number two, making sure you're not going to fucking crush yourself under a bar. And number three, being able to do it in a way that, part 1A, being able to do it in a way that you feel comfortable that if you are going to feel that you have someone there or something there to sort of pull you out of it or support you on it. Like, I wouldn't recommend everybody who's listening who trains by themselves in their basement just to put their max load on and go for as many as possible. Like, that is not what it's about. It's about doing it in a way that you're in control, the muscle is contracting, and it's about going to muscle failure, not until your body is completely fucked.
Right. And that's a big balance, right? You're not trying to injure yourself when you're doing this, but you're trying to do it methodically to where your muscles don't have any more ability to go. And then that's what's ultimately going to instruct them to say, hey, I need to be stronger. I need to have more endurance. I need to be able to go longer. You're telling your body, hey, the task at hand that I'm doing, you're not strong enough. I need you to be stronger in order for me to do that. And that's ultimately what we're accomplishing with weightlifting, with our ability to gain muscle, with our ability to put on muscle mass itself. It's such a cool process. And so that'll lead me into the great segue into the Dr. Attia podcast that I most recently listened to.
Andrew Huberman, do you listen to the podcast?
I cheated on Andrew Huberman on his podcast. Dr. Attia is really good too. I mean, he runs longevity clinics and things like that. And he focuses more on like the medicine 3.0 type of stuff, which is more so looking at your whole lifespan versus, most of the medical field, which is basically a 10-year lifespan of, hey, how do I do quality control within a 10-year period? What Dr. Attia is really big about is, take a look at your blood work and let's balance that blood work early on so that you don't have issues 20, 30, 40 years down the road. And he's always fascinating to listen to. And sometimes, he's way over my head. He dives down into like some of the crazy science and stuff. I'm like, I have no idea what any of this means, but it sounds awesome. But one of the things that he talked about, which I did not know, he had a guest on, and we'll make sure we link that episode. It's the most recent episode of The Drive, which is another great podcast to listen to. Obviously, listen to us first and then go there afterwards if you have time, but us first for sure. But what was really interesting, what we talked about was when we go to bed at night, our body turns into basically a muscle catabolism state where it starts to eat away at our muscles, believe it or not. So our muscles basically start to deteriorate a little bit overnight, and that process doesn't stop until we intake protein. So I thought that was really interesting to note that, for me, I understood how protein was important, but my understanding around how the mTOR production worked is that you didn't really know when it was going to happen. So you basically, kind of have protein throughout the day so that you can maximize when that protein synthesis would occur in your body and maximize muscle growth. While that's still true, you want to definitely spread protein out throughout the whole day. He also explained that, listen, you're at a state where your body's basically breaking down muscle when you first wake up in the morning. It is extremely important to get protein in the morning. And he recommends anywhere between 25 and 45 grams of protein at a minimum for your morning protein intake. So, if you're listening to this, also augmenting, if you're more in a fasted state where you don't eat until maybe later on in the day, supplementing that with essential amino acids is definitely as comparable to that. So, what I would recommend is as soon as you wake up in the morning, grab some essential amino acids or a protein-rich diet, protein-rich type of food, protein shake, whatever, and let your body get out of that muscle breakdown phase and into the muscle building phase, which is what we call mTOR production, which basically instructs your body to start building more muscle. And so he said the two most important meals of the day from a protein synthesis perspective is breakfast and dinner. So having a good amount of protein for dinner and a good amount of protein for breakfast will really ensure that you have there. Now, he said for people that are kind of in a maintenance phase, trying to lose weight, anywhere between 3 to 4 meals a day is typical, having 30 to 40 or 25 to 45 grams of protein per those meals. He said if you're in a muscle building state where you're like a bodybuilder or you're trying to put on muscle mass, he said usually 6 types of meals a day that are in the 25 to 45 range across the day, spread across the day is really important. He said, but spreading that protein out throughout the day, again, augmentation with things like essential amino acids can also help if you don't want to break your fast. Again, I know that's a debatable term on whether or not you're breaking your fast through essential amino acids or whatever. If your purpose is digestion type of fasting, then yes, technically you're breaking your fast a little bit because you have to digest essential amino acids, but it's very light on your stomach. But from an actual fasting perspective and the benefits of fasting, essential amino acids shouldn't have an impact since it's 0 calories. Your body isn't burning that; it's maintaining that fasted type of state. So you should be fine on those. What I also liked about the podcast too was that he broke down the theory that you can only get 25 grams of protein per serving. He said that's totally BS, basically, for lack of a better term. Your body can handle as much protein as you throw at it. He's like, but you typically want to spread that throughout the day so that you have the ability to really handle that protein and that you're kicking off that mTOR production each time that you're eating protein. So typically spreading it, if you have around 45 to 50 grams of protein per setting, or anywhere between 25 and 45 was kind of his range, but he said he can go higher than that, obviously. He said he wouldn't typically go lower. You're still going to have that good blend of mTOR production throughout the day for muscle growth. So Something I learned new. So my daily rituals have changed. What I would do is when I go to like Orange Theory, if I'm lifting in the morning, I'd have a really heavy protein centric food afterwards. What I'm doing now is I'm loading it with essential amino acids beforehand, doing my workout, and then protein afterwards, so that I'm still kickstarting that process with my essential amino acids in the morning, and then getting a great lift in. And then what I also said is, from a lifting perspective, drinking protein during lifting didn't really have a major benefit, but drinking protein afterwards was extremely critical to ensure that your body's instructed to kick off that mTOR process as your muscles are fatigued. Amplifies the muscle growth state for your muscles to have adequate protein versus breaking down. So again, that post-workout protein shake, extremely important, or protein centric, meal doesn't have to be protein shake. Extremely important post-workout, which again, we all kind of knew, but again, backing with science is always great.
Yeah. Should we finish off with some tips to navigate managing business and fitness where we go?
Yeah, for sure. I think, well, you go first.
I think the main thing that you've spoken about before is trying to keep your routine as much as possible. So it doesn't need to, because you're in a different city or a different country, be a total shit show. Like you can still sort of navigate things on the same sort of time frame and time schedule. Planning ahead, obviously, to know when you're going to be busy, when you're going to not be in control, and when you are in control of your actual time, when you can get your workouts in and what that looks like. Planning ahead in terms of knowing the sort of times that you're not going to be in control of your food, so you maybe need to pull back on calories, knowing the location that you're in and what's around it in terms of what's available from a food perspective, and then knowing the location in terms of, am I going to have to train in a hotel gym, or is there a cool gym that I want to train in whenever I'm out and about, and still sort of setting time aside, whatever it is, to get work done and get business done, or whatever it is.
I think for me, regardless of what I'm doing, so like I fly back from Belfast Monday, and I get back at like 5 o'clock at night. The first thing I do, go home, see the kids, see my wife, grab some dinner, and then I'm hitting the gym, right? No question about it. I know my gyms miss me. They're FaceTime. My weights have been FaceTiming me every so often. I have my son actually going downstairs and checking on them to make sure everything's fine. But, I've talked about this before in the past, but the workouts, the lifts, those types of things are non-negotiable. And it's something that I have to do as part of my day-to-day routines. And so actually, interesting enough, Friday we missed our lift because our flights got canceled. And we had to basically wait a bit to go, and we were like in limbo between not being at the hotel and our flights not being there. So we got back very late into Belfast on Friday. So we didn't get our lift in. It was just a plethora of issues. So normally Friday would be, my push day, but then Saturday we lifted with Halloween. Today would be my rest day. Guess what we did today? We lifted today on our rest days because we missed that Friday day. So, and we would have lifted anyway, to be honest with you. If we lifted Friday, we also lifted Saturday and Sunday. There's no question about it. But again, getting those workouts in when you can, knowing that you're not going to miss those, or if you absolutely have to miss them, making them up in some way, shape, or form. I think, again, we all think that we're too busy with our schedules and everything else, and we don't make time for ourselves, whereas the time for ourselves, the amount of effort that we're putting in is the most important piece of it. When I get back Monday, I have a meeting all day Tuesday. I'm waking up at 5 a.m. I'm hitting that gym as hard as I possibly can so that I'm knocked out for the rest of the day. I'm ready to go, and I can enjoy the rest of it. I know it's going to be a big meal towards the end, so I'm going to bank calories, bring a lot of protein-centric things throughout the day, and then I'm going to go have a nice meal at the very end of that with a big meeting. So that type of planning and managing that from a business perspective is absolutely doable. Whether it's a lunch break where you're getting your lift in, whether it's at night after everybody's gone to bed, whether it's first thing in the morning. I find for me, I generally wasn't the type of person that would knock it out first thing in the morning. But since my routines and habits have changed, I'm enjoying working out first thing in the morning first because no one's up and running. I don't have any distractions. I can spend more time, focusing on my workout routines. All of those things, I think, are my routines that I've been able to put into my own lifestyle. What can you do to maximize yours? And we're all busy. We all have different things. But again, I'm running, several companies. I'm internationally traveling. I'm dealing with all those different situations. I'm busy all the time. But at the end of the day, I still have time for myself. I still have time to get the lifts in when I need to. And it's a prioritization of mine. It's not something that goes by the wayside. The first thing I get off the plane, I'm like, where am I going to go lift? How am I going to go lift?
Where's the protein? Where's the protein and where's the gym? In this country?
The issue I ran into, I lost all my protein because it was in my carry-on bag. So still got my lift in, still found some protein, and it all worked out. Believe it or not, you can still find protein in Belgium, which I would say it was not a very, like all the gyms there were very cardio centric. So I'm really glad Wim was able to, like, it was literally like 2 gyms that we could find that had actual good weights that we could use for actually lifting. So, but again, you never know going into a different country what that's going to be like. But again, you can typically find protein and things like that anywhere that you go to. But I enjoyed the time. Obviously, we had a great time together, and really appreciate Ben's hospitality, getting to meet his family, showing me around his home. I showed him around my home, so I'm mostly Belgian. So I got to show Ben around quite a bit from there.
Neither of us had a clue what we were talking about.
No idea. No idea.
Didn't even know what language he spoke. But anyway,
No
we
idea.
did it. We made it. Thanks to Mark.
Yeah, Mark, thank you very much
for allowing us to have a podcast.
Yeah.
And thanks for listening, I guess.
Yeah, check us out again on We Hack Health, and really appreciate all of our listeners, your dedication. It's always great, like when you run into somebody like, oh, I listen to the podcast. Talking to my friend Chris, and he's like, I listen all the time now, and he's like, it's caused me to really focus more on my calories and being better, refined with what I'm doing. So again, these small changes, turn into really big things that you can do the rest of your life. And that's our whole goal here, is just bringing education, awareness, and living healthy lifestyles. That's what we're all about.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And next podcast, I will not be in Belfast, so it was an awesome trip. You'll be in Belfast, but I will not be. But Ben, thanks for your hospitality, man. It's been great. And we'll catch you all next week.
Thanks for listening.